Dmitry Glukhovsky, The Gospel According to Artyom. A couple of white plastic bags, borne by the wind, stick to my face. I take them off my mask's visor and release them. The bags, reunited with the wind, float away like jellyfish. No actual animal lives here, not the regular ones, nor the radiation-adjusted mutants, not a single living blade of grass or a leaf for kilometers around. It's just soot and melted iron, ashes and concrete rubble around here. Should the wind bring any seeds here, they, after falling onto this cursed soil, would simply wither and never even get a chance to sprout. Even the plastic bags, stopping here for a bit of rest, don't stay long and soon continue their aimless migration. I come here every day, and I've long since lost count of the days I spent here. I don a heavy hazard suit, put on my gas mask, take my weapon and start my climb up the escalator. At first, people used to see me off with unusual stares, a mix of condescension, admiration, and mockery. They got used to it soon, and now they pay me no attention at all. I like it better this way. I don't even know what am I looking for here myself. I might not even be looking for anything in particular at all. After all, they do say that the murderers are, for some reason, drawn towards the place where they carried out their crime. So might it just be an acute case of that? One thing I know for certain, I'm not going to find any forgiveness or hope here. I rabble the dirt with my boot, rummage through the melted iron bars. I only find soot instead of forgiveness and ashes instead of hope. And I will be coming here until my legs give. They gave me a hero's welcome. They were ragged, they were tattered, bloodied and burned. I came down from a bomb-crippled concrete broadcast tower, but the look in their eyes told me I might as well be coming down from heaven in a shiny chariot. All I wanted was to die. So I ripped the gas mask off my face. The air, the polluted and poisoned air, which I wanted to taste for so long, filled my lungs. Yet I felt nothing. I stumbled along the street, hoping something would just eat me before I got back to the metro. But the monsters that were quite recently longing for my blood had apparently developed disgust towards it now. And when I reached the metro, a crowd was already waiting for me there. They came topside, despite the taboo, to see the ground I won back for their children from the demons. And when they saw me breathe surface's frosty air, some of them started removing their masks, too. It seemed to them that my victory had already given their long-lost world right back to them. What they didn't know was that I'd just destroyed their last chance for salvation, and I never told them. I saw a woman with a child among those who came to welcome me back. Didn't she fear for the boy's life? She probably did, yet just a few hours before she knew for sure she was going to die. Everybody here, all these worn-out people, until quite recently, were ready to die. They stayed at a besieged station, for they had nowhere to run. They stayed to defend their home until the end, which was absolutely sure to follow soon. Would people, granted pardon mere moments before their execution, be afraid of catching a cold? They wouldn't be afraid of anything. They had no idea their execution was simply replaced with a life sentence. The boy being held by his mother had already taken off his improvised gas mask and was waving towards me. "Look, Artyom, look! It's snowing." Gray flakes were slowly falling down, covering the brown dirt and the black cracked asphalt. I caught some and rubbed them on my palm. "Yahoo! Snow!" The boy was ecstatic. "That's just ashes," I said. "I'm a coward, so I'll be their hero." I won't ever muster the courage needed to tell them what had actually transpired. And should I even spill my guts, they'd still never believe me. Or they'd think the Dark Ones had actually managed to put my mind under control. There are already legends being told about me, and some crazy old man's even writing a book. A boy from a backwater station has to cross all of Merto to save his home, along with humanity in general, from hellspawn invading from the surface. Having weathered numerous battles and becoming stronger, he gets a hold of the powerful weapon devised by the ancestors and strikes the evil abominations down. Trying to escape their fate, the despicable creatures assault the boy's mind, but he overcomes this final exam, does not yield to the temptation, and triumphs. Our children won't know how to write. The children of our children won't even know what letters were. There won't be anyone left capable of reading the book about the Merto, but the troglodytes still living in the tunnels will tell this tale one another while sitting around their fires, gnawing upon the bones of their enemies for as long as they retain the ability to speak. I have firmly secured an eternal central place in the legends of the cannibal savages for myself, a fitting punishment for my cowardice. When asked about how did it all start, I always tell that it all started that day we opened that airlock at the Botanical Gardens. We, meaning yours truly, and 2 of my friends. We were mere kids back then, and we had no idea what were we doing. Sure thing, we broke some rules. But has there ever been a boy who never broke any rules? Whose brilliant idea it was to visit the abandoned station? Who took the others along? I always tell them that I don't remember, that it was either Vitali, the Splinter, or Eugene. I always lie. It is a safe lie, for there's no way to ascertain the truth. Both Vitali and Eugene are dead now, and even if they were still alive, they'd cover for me, just like I'd always covered for them. No, it did not start the moment the massive airlock doors shrugged and opened with a grinding sound, opening a road to hell for us and a road to our home for the demons. It was a totally different day, a sunny, sparkling fresh, yet warm, filled with incredibly sweet scents that I can't even remember, though I definitely know I never experienced anything like that ever since. So, Artyom, my mom smiled to me. How about going for a walk in the Botanical Gardens? What do you say? Great, I shouted. I'm all for it. I remember how we rode there in an almost empty Merto carriage. It was a day off, after all. I remember how we took a short escalator to the surface, how we exited a spacious glass pavilion, and saw a street buried in verdure. I remember the small clouds moving across the limitless sky and soft, cool wind on my face. There was an ice cream stand right at the exit, so we got in the line. Which are you going to have? A wafer cup or a chocolate chip? One. Wafer. Chocolate. Both. You have to choose one, replied Mom with a shade of strictness. Can't have them all. You know you're allergic. Well, maybe you could get the chocolate chip one while I get the wafer cup. And then we both share. All right. She laughed. Even eating both ice creams at once wouldn't have done me any harm that day, for that would basically be the last dessert that I had ever since. Then we entered the gardens and walked along the wide, winding alleys until the dinner time. Having lost our way, we accidentally found a tiny Japan-themed garden, lost in the vast park. A pond filled with the water lilies, a rickety bridge crossing it, and unbelievably beautiful birds swimming around dark mirror-like surface. It's actually amazing how much I remember. I remember so much stuff I could easily do without, and yet I forget the most important of all, the sight of her face, my mother's face. I don't know why, or who prohibited me from seeing her eyes, her smile, and her hair. I never accepted this prohibition, and for as long as I remember, I always wanted to go back to that day. To the whispering alleys, the mandarin ducks, the warm asphalt with sunbeams piercing the cover of the trees. Back to my mom, and yet the world I was seeking so desperately is gone forever, and my mother's gone with it. There's nothing left of that world except for that day, and 2 or 3 rough sketches still stored in my memory. An evening in our flat, cozy light from a lamp, warmth. I only wish I could recall her face. The way she looked at me, the way she whispered that I've nothing to fear, the way she'd wink at me. I'd sell my soul just to recall that. I'd do that any day, any time. And I did. The judgment day came. The righteous and the sinful were called to be rendered to according to their deeds. And we hid from God's sight in the Merto, and we were saved from his wrath, and he apparently decided that flushing us out wasn't worth the trouble. Then he went about his business, or perhaps died, and we stayed on this discarded earth, and we continued going along its orbit into nothingness. The humanity was executed, while we two were among those given a short reprieve. Hers has proven to be way too short, mine way too long. My mom was devoured by rats. I don't remember that day, but if I was spared from that memory in exchange for the one about that summer morning in the botanical gardens, I'm ready to exchange them back. Do you hear me, whoever you are? I was picked up by a man who thought he'd adopt me. A pity I was not ready to become his son. We grew closer, and yet we remained strangers forever. The shadow of my mother, whom he was unable to save from the rat onslaught, and whom I was unable to bring myself up to deal with, remained between us. I never told him a word of reproach, but I could not completely forgive him either. I was like a branch broken off a tree. An attempt to attach me to another trunk failed, since the break-off point was so scarred and all the cells that were supposed to take root and connect me to a new tree were dead. No amount of effort could make the merge happen. That's how we'd lived together, yet apart. He, a loner, me, an orphan. I could never see her face, even in my dreams. I saw that day with the mandarin ducks a lot of times, but I never saw Mother, her shape, her voice, her laughter. Everything was vague, trying to concentrate. Reaching out was useless. She was ever elusive, ephemeral. Touching her or holding her was completely impossible. It was my idea to go visit the Botanical Gardens station. Mine completely. I was afraid to go alone, and I wouldn't have made it that way. Somebody had to draw the attention of the guards standing watch in the northern tunnel. Otherwise, we'd be caught at the very first roadblock. I went there to reach the surface. I don't know what did I hope to see there. It was definitely not that long-lost summer day, with its cerulean sky, not the ice cream stand still open for business in an open challenge to all the laws of the universe, and not rays of sun dancing on the boardwalk. Perhaps, somewhere inside that little boy I was then, inside that dirty-faced matryoshka, sporting a buzz cut and carrying a rusty shotgun, there was another matryoshka, a happy 3-year-old that was fond of ice cream and still believed in miracles, and was still hoping to meet his mother who'd left him and whom he'd missed greatly up there, on the surface. Lots of new layers have grown on my core since then, like the year rings of a tree. The boy with the shotgun was encased within a shy bookworm of a teenager. He, in turn, was enveloped by a naive and adventure-hungry young man, and now they are all imprisoned inside an ugly soul of a burnt and scarred man without an age. This is the final layer, one that I'll never be able to shed, crack, or destroy. That's just what I am now. And yet I still know that somewhere deep inside, beneath all those layers, that 3-year-old boy is hiding and hoping. I told the guys we're going to play stalkers, and that was enough to get them to follow me. The Botanical Gardens station was dark and empty. The floor was littered with fragments of somebody's lives, torn tents, broken dolls, smashed dishes. Rats were all around, gnawing on whatever they could hope to digest. Suffocating dust hung thick in the air, dulling all the sounds and smelling of hopelessness. If hell, real hell, exists, it probably looks not unlike the Botanical Gardens station that day. It was me again who'd proposed opening the airlock. Vitaly was scared speechless of the damned station, and even Eugene said he was not sure we should do that when I put my hands on the levers. I was too close to my goal, to that day, to that world, to listen to them and stop. Sure thing. Now I always tell people it was Eugene's idea, to go up there. Ask him yourselves if you don't believe me. The door actuator was in a bad state, but it still worked. Follow me? I was carrying the shotgun while Eugene had the flashlight. Everybody had enough courage to climb the unsteady steps into the top pavilion of the station, overgrown with thick moss that was stirring gently, as if breathing. Then our team broke down. Vitaly couldn't make himself go outside. Eugene made a few steps and froze still. But my legs were moving by themselves. The night sky was clear and shone with thousands of stars. But I didn't come there for the sky. What did I come for? At first I'd just look around irresolutely, comparing the half-decomposed, horribly disfigured earth with the beautiful yet so vague memories and dreams of mine, as if trying to identify a corpse of a really close relative fallen victim to a horrible accident. Finally, noticing a faint resemblance, I went faster and turned around a corner. Up the street, the multi-eyed mutant skulls of the abandoned residential buildings were baring their teeth at me. Down the street, half of the world was occupied by the dense forest, the Botanical Gardens. Apparently the only place in the city that's actually profited from the radiation turned into. Several white plastic bags were floating around in the wind. They say such bags may take up to 500 years to decompose. Heartrending howling cries could be heard from nearby, as if something was being eaten alive. But I didn't pay any attention to those. "Artyom, where are you going?" "Artyom." I didn't even look back, and Eugene, my best friend, was too scared to follow me. 100 meters further, and then I saw that ice cream stand. The rainbow colors it was once sporting were long since washed away with the rains and was further discolored by the night. Its windows were broken, contents overturned and sullied. It somehow shrunk and withered and looked almost nothing like the magic gourmet palace of my past, just as a man struck with cancer looks nothing like his former self. I touched the stand and shut my eyes tightly, trying to imagine my mom telling me to choose one of the 2 ice creams. I even whispered, "Pretty, please." And then I knew I won't ever be able to recall her, even if I were to enter the menacing thicket of the gardens and find those very alleys, that very pond, and that very bridge, staying alive all along. I would amount to exactly nothing. I felt loneliness, such as I'd never felt before. But there I was, still touching the abandoned stand as if waiting for my cue to arrive. Not that I didn't know perfectly well that it was never going to. I was an orphan. I was alone in the whole world. That was probably the moment when the reprieve I was given ran out. I didn't hear a thing. The beasts moved almost completely, silently. Some kind of an animal sixth sense, which usually gets extremely keen when you live in the metro, prompted me of their presence, so I opened my eyes. A pack of wild dogs, filthy and covered with ulcerations. I was encircled and had my back to the stand's wall. There was nowhere to run, and I would never be able to outrun them anyway. Looking in their eyes, I knew that there was no hope of scaring them away or taming them. The surface at the time was not yet brimming with all the sick and distorted life that's so abundant there now. The dogs got lucky. They'd found me, and they had to devour me as soon as possible, before hunger made them go for each other's throats. "Shoot them!" Eugene cried out from somewhere. You do have the gun." I came to and pointed the shotgun at the largest beast, pulling the trigger. All I heard was a dry click. I pulled the second trigger, and the shotgun didn't fire again. The shells must have gone bad due to all the humidity, and I had no reloads. One of the dogs turned towards Eugene. "Go," I said. "Just don't try to run. They'll jump you first if you do." Eugene started backing down slowly, keeping his face turned towards the beasts. I was just standing there, looking at him. "Just a moment. I'll be back. With help," mumbled Eugene. It was apparent that no help would make it in time. He knew that, and I knew that. When I told him to leave, there was still a shade of hope in me. What if he does not run? What if he thinks something up? When he followed my advice, I couldn't help feeling betrayed. The dog I was going to shoot before made a step forward, raised its head, and sent a hoarse howl towards the stars. The packs started crawling towards me, closing in for the final leap. And then the jet-black forest, the dilapidated houses, the whole freezing planet shook from a howl so awful it didn't even make you want to run. Just dropping face down and silently praying for mercy was more like it. I never heard anything like it before. One of the dogs jumped at me. They were standing down there at the airlock and quarreling. They didn't have the courage to check if the dogs had dismembered me already, and they weren't cowardly enough to run crying to their mommies at the exhibition. At least they had where to run. "How?" Eugene stared at me. I shrugged my shoulders. "How long was I there?" "About 15 minutes. How did you escape?" "Artyom?" "I've no idea." I tucked my head and shoulders again. "Just 15 minutes. It seemed to me that everything, our trip, the rusty, discolored stand, the dogs, everything was yesterday, as if I'd slept a night." "Artyom," insisted Eugene. "Why are you smiling? What happened?" I gave him no answer. I remembered nothing. I recalled everything years after. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Sure as hell, I hated the Dark Ones. Everyone does. Walking through my home station with floor splattered with blood, madmen tied hand and foot writhing about in their delirium. Revenge was the only thing on my mind. When I heard Eugene was killed, I shed the last doubt. I wanted to burn their nest to cinders, along with the botanical gardens, which I'd never be able to return to anyways. The legends that gossip lovers tell each other today depict the Dark Ones as having incredible power and being terribly ferocious. They say they dismembered the guards with bare hands, writhing their necks. I won't be surprised if the mutants from these tales start actually drinking human blood. This is all complete and utter nonsense. Truth is 100 times scarier. The fact is, the Dark Ones didn't kill a single man. They didn't even touch anyone. Everyone died at the hands of their own comrades who were driven raving mad by the Dark Ones. Nobody is able to retain self-control when the Dark Ones approach, and nobody remembers what he turned into while they were around. Sure thing, when the feat subsides and you see your friend with his throat ripped out, it's easier than anything to think that a beast had done it. Think it and believe it. True enough, by the way, the only catch being that the beast had crawled out your own self and hid right back after finishing its business. That is something anyone's better with not knowing, for anyone who met that beast within even for a moment would always be in dire need of a straight jacket. There's only one person I know who tried to make do without one. He thought combat armor was a better restraint for a body housing the monster trying to take its actual owner's place. He believed that a titanium helmet would stop something alien from entering his head. But we're not talking about this man now. There was nobody who did not feel fear and disgust at the mere sight of the Dark Ones. They were our complete opposite. Seeing a Dark One was not unlike seeing a man turned inside out, with meat and intestines, pulsing outside with obscene frankness, not because of their body structure. One could poke a dark one's corpse with a stick, or kick it, with no fear of losing the latest meal. It was something completely different. Their living presence was to be blamed. The closer they approached, the stronger the disgust and fear grew. It seemed that if this hellspawn touched you, your soul, not brain, but the very soul, would be infected with some kind of a parasite or fungus, be covered with pus-spouting ulcers, wither and die, but still remain there, serving as food for the parasite for as long as it deems necessary, though the actual impressions varied from person to person. So there was nothing more normal than wanting to eliminate every last one of these nightmares. It was the only way to get rid of fear, which would otherwise follow you until death. And that's why I knew what I had to do when the weapon of revenge we pried out of our ancestors' cold, dead hands fell under my control. And I did exactly that. It took the missiles less than a minute to cover the distance between the launch position that survived the final war in a miraculously mint condition and the home of the new sentient species that was equally miraculously born to this planet. But there was another minute before that, the time it took while the target coordinates were being transferred to the launch control. That minute turned into a personal eternity for me. "I don't remember," I told Eugene. "Get off my case." Of course, we were questioned when we got back. We told nothing. Eugene and Vitaly forgot that going to the gardens was my idea, and I forgot that they left me on the surface alone. I never asked Eugene about why did he leave me there to be eaten by the wild dogs, and he never asked how I managed to escape. And all of us kept complete silence about us leaving the airlock open when we were fleeing the gardens as fast as we could. We tried to close it manually, but it was really hard to move. Then I told, "To hell with it!" Vitaly and Eugene looked at me with either a reproach or gratitude and left that scrap metal alone. We all became accomplices in the same crime, but it was me who told "to hell with it." Why? Maybe because I didn't forget everything. Because the traces of what had happened came back to me. Because they were trying to escape the cellars of conscience where I'd locked them, seeping into my dreams, taking me completely unprepared. I prevented myself from remembering, since whatever happened was incredibly scary, and probably forbidden. And when the Dark Ones started descending into Merto using the airlock we left open, that's when I felt really uncomfortable. That old geezer who's supposedly writing a book about me. I gave him a rather complete account of my dreams, describing some of the nightmares in detail. Still, I never talked to him about the vision that visited me much more often than any other. Maybe that's because I always suspected it might have not been a dream. The huge dog jumps at me, aiming its yellow fangs directly at my throat. The others are ready to join in as soon as the leader drops me. I'm going to die within seconds. My time has run out. The dog goes limp in the middle of its jump and drops to the ground like a rag doll. The other dogs tuck their tails, whine, and crawl back. I turn around and freeze. There's a huge black shadow standing right behind my shoulder. Incredible, indescribable terror envelops me. Then I feel something on my head, a palm. A second passes, then another. I'm trying to wrestle away, but the long and incredibly strong fingers securely hold my head. I understand. This is the end. Then the pain and fear suddenly fade away, like a lump of sugar in a cup of tea. The dogs are running. One of them shits itself. The other convulses uncontrollably. But I no longer care for the dogs. Abandoning my attempts to get away from the grip of the black hand, I raise my eyes slowly and gaze upon the mysterious creature holding my soul at the palm of its hand. The Dark One. It is humanoid, and is way higher than even the highest of the adults I've seen. Its skin is darker than a darkest night, and its unblinking round eyes are jet black, too, and yet they contain much more wisdom than many those blessed with whites of the eyes. There's no doubt it's no beast, no monster. A human stands before me and stares right into me with his strange eyes. He sees everything, the botanical gardens of the past I longed to enter, and that of the present which I'd almost entered. He sees the colorful ice cream stand, the queue, the small clouds speeding across the sky, the mandarin ducks in the pond, and my mother. He sees her death, sees me wandering along the empty tunnels, my sadness and my loneliness, my inability to grow attached to another of my kind. He sees a Dark One, a strange, little and clumsy one, a strangely colored one, a stranger in this land and the whole wide world, abandoned and unable to reach out for anyone. An orphan, and he pities me, sympathizes with me and blesses me. For a tiny little moment, instead of his imposing dark silhouette, I see Mother. She is smiling, whispering something tender to me and stroking my hair. She hands me an ice cream. The leaves above our heads rustle in the wind. The silver clouds float in the sky, and people around us laugh happily. Everything is just the way it was that day. When I came to, I could not recall her face anymore, and I never saw it in any of my dreams ever since, though I know for sure that the Dark One did show it to me. That moment it even seemed to me that he did not simply make an image of her face, did not put a mask of her to entertain me, but as if he channeled her very essence for a moment, allowing her to actually incarnate within him for a few seconds, for one short date with her son. That's supposedly what the mediums do for the summoned spirits. I felt adopted, and then I was alone again. The only words of farewell I felt were, "You are the first." But when I returned home, the happening did not leave a deeper trace in my memory than a magic dream does after you wake up. Quite soon, it was completely forgotten. Or at least, that's what I thought. "Why are you smiling?" asked Eugene with suspicion. I didn't know myself. When the Dark Ones recalled about me again, I was 24. It was way too late. The humans already did bring me up their way. Hearing stories of the awful beasts breaking into our home from the surface and devouring our guards alive, killing the friends of my stepfather, the fathers of my friends. I suspected that somewhere in my childhood something really bad happened. I thought the dreams that sometimes reminded me of that are to be chased away. I thought that since the Dark Ones can control the grown-ups like a puppeteer controls a glove puppet, gutting a kid's mind would be as easy for them as snapping their fingers. I wanted to run from the exhibition exactly because the fragments of that fateful night would still sometimes surface in my conscience. Because I was afraid of the Dark Ones turning me into a puppet one night to kill my sleeping friends or the military leaders of the station. Hunter thought I had a natural immunity against the powers of the Dark Ones. The truth was that I was inoculated. I was bearing a fragment of their soul within mine. That's why I didn't feel pain or fear whenever they tried talking to me. I was immune because they already were, inside me. But if I ever told Hunter about it, he'd strangle me on the spot despite his long-lasting friendship with my stepfather. I'd gladly kill myself if I was brave enough. But I was a coward, and I ran. I accepted Hunter's task just for that. I thought I'd hide from the Dark Ones, escape my fate. And when I got brave enough, I only had enough courage to shit their voices within me with an MLRS salvo. I always was a coward, and I remained a coward. The canon of the legend of Artyom says that the Dark Ones tried talking to our hero when the missiles were already in flight. Why do I keep telling about that? To shrug some of the responsibility, to make the whole world and, consequently, myself believe that I could not have changed anything, that it was already too late when I understood. Yes, they say that if you tell lies long enough, you start believing them yourself. That's my only hope. What else? I understood everything before the coordinates of the city of the Dark Ones were transmitted. The Dark Ones told me they came in peace, that they wanted to build a symbiotic relationship with us, that they wanted to understand us, but were unable to reach understanding with the remnants of humanity hiding in their holes. They told me that my true destiny was to become a link between the two species and to stop the fray. I usually stress the last point, so that the legend becomes open-ended and everyone interprets it, depending on how bitter he is. Most people just think the Dark Ones were trying to control me in order to avert their destruction. The doubtful ones make an assumption that the Dark Ones were probably not going to eat every last one of us. And I wash my hands. This is all true. But there was more to it. The first thing I saw in the tower was her face. The face of my mother. I know they've shown it to me not as a bargaining chip. It was something like a greeting. Their prodigal son stopped hiding and came into the open, unclenching his fists. And they greeted him with open hands. That's what it was. And then they gave me that long-lost day again, though this time it happened not just for the vicinity of the botanical gardens, but for the whole world. Standing at the observation desk of the Ostankino Tower, I was entranced by the view. I did not see the city depopulated by war and plague, the dead shells of the buildings and spilled guts of the streets. I saw Moscow living, brimming with life. I'm sure they've shown it to me not just because I wanted to see it for so long. They meant to say that together we could bring all that back. Together. And I still had a chance to stop it all. I had a minute. I could explain everything to my comrades. I could push the transmitter off the tower. I could do anything. And what did I do? I washed my hands. The target coordinates were computed and reported. They were entered in the ballistic computer, and the launch buttons were pushed. All by other people. I was not guilty of any of it. I just stood there and watched. Then I descended from the tower and got my hero's welcome. I can't recall her face anymore. There's only one thing left for me now. Go back to the site. I went there yesterday, and the day before, and 2 days before, all the last year. I'm going there now. I'll go there tomorrow. It's not a right. It's not my job, and not my duty. It's just that something inside me pushes me there every morning. Some vague longing makes me don the heavy protective gear, demand that the guards open the airlock, climb up the escalator from 50 meters below the ground, drag myself along the empty streets, all just to get here. This place used to be called the Botanical Gardens. Now it's just soot and ashes, and only the plastic bags float above this charred plot of land, even after we all die out. I give humanity around 200 years more at the best. The bags are still going to be floating about for several centuries. Perhaps that's all what will remain of our civilization, of our world. The bags, these indestructible excrements of ours, a fitting memory of lowly us. I have quite a lot of free time now, about an eternity, so there was plenty of chance for me to think everything over. I have a little theory. The Dark Ones were no demons. Quite the opposite. They were an embassy of angels on earth sent here for our salvation and trial. Should we have proven capable of suppressing the beast within ourselves, of seeing the white feathers beneath their jet-black exterior, find a way of understanding them despite the pain and disgust, we'd have passed the test and received forgiveness for the sin of destroying the world we didn't create. We were incapable of such a feat. I was. I alone. Thus I, as if cursed, am walking to the place of my eternal vigil, to the gardens. It's neither a punishment nor penance. I just can't live without doing this, though I can't understand why. I don't even want to think of the reasons. I keep digging in the ashes with a long stick, keep picking up the pieces of molted metal. I might have gone through all of this accursed field already and, without noticing it or finding anything, just started all over again. Then again, what am I looking for? A blade of grass? Or a bone of the being that wanted to accept, even adopt me, a lonely kid? Or the shadow of the trees that grew here the day when Mother took me for a walk here? Forgiveness, hope, soot and ashes, ashes and soot. I sit right on the ground, so what if it is radioactive? A plastic bag is swept towards me by a gust of wind and attaches itself to my face, completely blocking the visor of my gas mask. I don't even raise a hand to remove it. I'm too tired to live. A new gust of wind comes and the bag flies up and away. I'm still staring at my boots. I wish there was a tree to hang myself on. I finally assemble enough spite and desperation to go home, back to listening to the myths of my heroic deeds and enriching them with more colorful detail. Back to my real penance. Then, God. I close my eyes and open them again, trying to pinch myself through the gray elephant skin of protective suit. No, it's no ghost. The visor gets foggy at once and I rip the mask away, just like that time at the tower. He's still standing here, forgetting everything. I, awkwardly stepping with my cumbersome boots, run towards him, tripping over the melted metal pipes and other debris. I don't know what I should tell him. I don't even know how to talk to him at all. But I'll find a way. God, please let this not be a mirage or an illusion. I come closer to him. I don't know where did he come from, and don't want to ask so that not to scare away the miracle. I simply believe in him, and belief leaves no space for questions. He turns towards me. Disproportionately long arms, huge jet-black eyes with no whites or pupils, glossy black skin. He's still very little, less than half my height, so he looks up at me. It seems there's only emptiness in his eyes, but I take off a glove and gently touch his head with my bare hand. I fear I might scare or hurt him. And I understand that he's alone in the whole world. He has only me.